Hello, my name is Ronald Green. I'm the Trade Commissioner at the Australian Embassy promoting exports and investment opportunities with Australia. Thank you to the host Energy Plus for inviting me on to give this presentation on Australia's H2 government strategy. And I apologise in advance that my Korean. I hope this presentation in English meets your needs. Today I'm going to cover two areas. First of all, hydrogen, but I also wanted to touch on renewables, as that's going to be the sector that will power our hydrogen industry of the future. But first of all, let's talk about why Australia. And there's many factors that you should consider when you look at the potential for Australia to partner with Korea. The least is we're one of the 14th largest economies in the world, yet we only have 25 million people. Australia is rated AAA, and prior to the impact of COVID virus, had enjoyed 28 consecutive years of economic growth, averaging 3.2% growth per annum. Only yesterday, Australia had no coronavirus cases, and we are commencing a three-step framework to reopen our internal borders by December 2020, while managing the situation under COVID normal. Australia is one of the easiest places in the world to do business, ranking 14th of 190 economies in the world. Australia has an open and globally integrated economy. Its top 5 two-way trading partners are China, Japan, the United States, South Korea and Singapore. 12 of Australia's top 15 export markets are within the fast-growing Asian region. The quality of governance in Australia ranks among the best in the world. We respect the rule of law, and the lack of corruption is important and highly recognised by the World Bank. Despite these strong drivers, and Korea being our fourth largest trading partner, Korea only ranks 16th in the inward investment rankings, with primary investments being in coal, gas, iron ore, but recently there have been investments in renewable energy, and we hope hydrogen to come in the future. In 2020, the Low Emissions Technology Statement was announced, and these are the 5 key stretch goals that I would like you to focus on. This statement provides a framework to accelerate the introduction of low emission technology from the R&D and pre-commercial stage by providing stretch goals that will incentivize private investment. These stretch goals provide a signal to help us achieve our Paris commitments by 2030, drive public and private partnerships to scale technology, encourage legislative reform, facilitate monitoring towards these goals, and create jobs. These goals will also help Korea achieve its hydrogen roadmap. The key goals are hydrogen for $2 per kilogram versus the current level of $10 or so. To deliver this, there'll need to be expansion of our renewables capacity, which I will mention later when I talk about the Asian Renewable Energy Hub. This will drive demand for energy storage, and we have a target of $100 per megawatt hour versus the current levels in excess of $500 per megawatt hour. With a lower cost of hydrogen and cheaper renewable energy, energy-intensive industries such as steel and aluminium smelting will become more affordable. We are also driving carbon capture and storage, and with some of the best storage basins in the world, carbon capture and storage costs should drop to less than $20 a tonne to support carbon abatement for industries such as LNG and cement. Australia already has the largest carbon capture and storage project in the world, with the Chevron facility in Western Australia, which captures over 2.5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide over the last 2 years. Now to hydrogen. The Australian government aims to create a competitive hydrogen industry that is a major global player by 2030. We will be drawing on our natural competitive advantage. Australia has abundant resources that can be used for hydrogen production, including natural gas and solar power. The government research anticipates the hydrogen industry could contribute $1.7 billion per annum in exports and provide 2,800 jobs by 2030. Industry sources predict the Australian hydrogen industry will reach a similar scale to the local natural gas industry in the long term. Australian exporters and international investors are creating pilot projects to explore hydrogen production capabilities, and they are seeking partners to scale up to supply future domestic and export demand. A full list of industry and R&D projects will be introduced to you later in this presentation, but I'd like to touch on a few projects, such as the AGIG's Hydrogen Park, which is a 1.25 megawatt electrolyser in South Australia. The Hydrogen Utility, which is a project to build a 30 megawatt electrolyser. The Gemina Western Sydney Gas Project, which is aimed at doing a trial to power 250 homes and provide hydrogen for vehicle refueling stations. And the ACT project to test 100% hydrogen, if hydrogen can be used in materials, equipment and work practices. In the area of research, there are two main initiatives. The first is the Future Fuels Cooperative Research Centre, where the Australian Government has committed $45 million, and this is with state funding, and an additional $47.5 million from universities and industry. There is also the Australian Renewable Energy Arena, which was set up in 2012 to manage Australia's renewable energy programs and accelerate a shift towards reliable renewable energy. Under the ARENA program, in September 2020, the Australian Government provided $1.6 billion in funding to ARENA so it can continue to support low-emission technologies. In April 2020, the agency launched the $70 million Renewable Hydrogen Deployment Fund to fast-track development of renewable hydrogen in Australia. In July 2020, 7 companies were shortlisted to submit full applications for the next round of funding. As some of you may know, our key gas states are Queensland, West Australia and Northern Territory, and these states have a head start in developing hydrogen export opportunities. Queensland, West Australia and Northern Territory have a competitive advantage, of course, and being close to market and have extensive resources. Australia's gas engine will give our small hydrogen industry a competitive advantage when it comes to the use of transportation and infrastructure. All 3 states have extensive natural gas reserves in proximity to depleted gas fields and other sedimentary resources that can be used for carbon capture and storage reservoirs. Queensland, West Australia and Northern Territory have abundant solar energy that enables electricity to be generated at some of the highest annual capacity factors in the world. These states have good port access with existing infrastructure for processing and exporting ammonia, fertilisers and LNG that can be partially leveraged to move quickly into the hydrogen sector. Woodside Energy, an important player in the Korean market, has already signalled its interest in developing hydrogen production and export facilities in Western Australia's Pilbara region. Australia is well placed to supply existing LNG markets in Asia as they switch to hydrogen. Australia is an established, reliable energy supplier to major economies in the Asia Pacific, including Japan and South Korea. Australia could export up to 137,000 tonnes of hydrogen a year by 2025, 500,000 tonnes by 2030, and about 1.4 million tonnes by 2040. Japan, South Korea and China are the most likely export markets. Australia's federal and state and territory governments have supportive policies, incentive programs and strategies for the energy sector, with dedicated energy ministers to support the portfolio. Australia offers political stability and cooperation across all states and federal governments and with the federal government. And of course we have had 3 decades of uninterrupted economic growth. And behind all of this is a highly skilled and educated workforce, keen to support the transition to a new hydrogen future. On this slide, I would like to introduce to you the source of the Australian hydrogen industry and research projects. This resource is called HyResource and is available via this website link, and has all the information on our Australian production and R&D projects. There are 12 projects that are operating or under construction, with the four projects in advanced stages of planning. As hydrogen is presently in the market activation or pre-competitive phase, a large majority of projects are classified as under development, and several of these projects have planned to be operational within 3 years. The projects listed cover the full spectrum of end-use activities, with a focus on hydrogen mobility, hydrogen and gas networks, and industrial processes such as ammonia production. I'd now like to touch on renewables, which will be the power of green hydrogen. Australia is set to become a renewable energy superpower, exporting Australian technology and expertise to global markets that are decarbonising energy production. The Australian electricity sector contributes over 1/3 of our national greenhouse gas emissions, mainly due to its high reliance on coal-fired generation. Australia is committed to decarbonising power generation through innovation and legislation, and of course, introduction of renewables. The Australian government's target is to reduce emissions by up to 28% from 2005 levels by 2030. This target represents up to 52% reduction in emissions per capita and a 65% reduction in emission intensity of the economy over the period 2005 to 2030. The target for large-scale generation of 33,000 gigawatts per hour in 2020 means that about 23% of Australia's electricity generation in 2010-20 is from renewable energy. In September 2019, the Clean Energy Regulator announced that Australia had met its large-scale renewable energy targets more than a year ahead of schedule. Australia's large-scale renewable energy capacity increased by 2.0 gigawatts over 34 projects in 2019, with large-scale solar making up 2/3 of this new capacity. At the end of 2019, 11.1 gigawatts of new generation was under construction or financially committed, representing $20.4 billion in investment and over 14,000 jobs. Australia's state and territory governments have now committed to net zero emissions by 2050. These targets, however, meeting these targets will require continual investments in renewable energies, with wind, solar, hydro, electric and bioenergy important targets. There are investment opportunities for Koreans in this sector. The importance of technology obviously is high, and here we have the Australian research organisation CSIRO is funding or developing key technologies in this sector, and their projects cover a broad spectrum from grids to storage to hydraulic fracturing, solar energy and ocean energy. The CSIRO also works internationally, and there is a number of projects underway with Korean partners to develop both hydrogen and renewable energy technology. In addition, the Australian government provides a 45% renewable refundable tax offset for R&D conducted if you're a company with revenue less than $20 million per annum. We provide a strong legal framework that ensures that your intellectual property is also protected. And finally, I would like to introduce to you the Asian Renewable Energy Hub. This $36 billion Asian Renewable Energy Hub will be awarded major project status by the federal government in this year. It is on a 6,500 hectare site in Western Australia and will generate 26 gigawatts of power from renewable wind and sunshine to produce green hydrogen. Major project status expedites approvals for processes and expedites the recently tightened Foreign Investment Review Board process and we're targeting exports of hydrogen by 2028. The scale of this project has to be seen to be believed, but it will include 1,700 wind towers that are up to 260 metres high and 37 arrays of 55 megawatt solar panels and 37 substations. So just to wrap up my presentation, I'll just leave you with this short video that introduces the Asian Renewable Energy Fund. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I look forward to the opportunity one day of meeting you in person. Good afternoon.
A clean energy revolution is taking place. Wind and solar energy are now cheaper than fossil fuels, and the end of our reliance on coal, oil and gas to power our world and make our products is within reach. The Asian Renewable Energy Hub will be the largest power station on Earth. Spread across 6,500 square kilometres of the Pilbara in Western Australia, the project will generate 26,000 megawatts of renewable energy using wind turbines and solar panels to capture the world-class resources of our excellent coastal desert site. But that's not all. Our ability to generate large volumes of low-cost, clean renewable energy will not only help power mines and industry in the Pilbara, but also unleash the large-scale production of a new industry, green hydrogen. Hydrogen is used to make fertiliser, pharmaceuticals and many of the products we use in our daily life. It can also be used to power cars, trucks, ships and trains. In fact, hydrogen is so useful, it's often referred to as the master molecule. But hydrogen doesn't occur naturally on its own. Currently, it must be extracted from fossil fuels, causing pollution and greenhouse gases. Green hydrogen, on the other hand, is produced using renewable energy and is therefore pollution and emission-free. Our world has abundant hydrogen. Water is 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, and just a fraction of the world's oceans could supply our world and make our products forever. But the process of splitting hydrogen from oxygen takes electricity. And so, if we want green hydrogen, that electricity must come from renewable sources. And now, we can do it. The Asian Renewable Energy Hub will extract hydrogen from seawater using wind and solar power. This green hydrogen will then be combined with nitrogen from the air to create green ammonia, offsetting over 20 million tonnes of CO2 emissions every year. Green ammonia can be stored and transported at a large scale. It will be used to generate electricity for our growing economies, power ships which transport our goods, make fertilisers for our farmers, pharmaceuticals for our doctors, and many other products. The Earth is our home. We're all in this together. Every action we take affects our planet. There is now a pathway to a 100% sustainable future. The Asian Renewable Energy Hub, leading the world's energy transition.